Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, a podcast devoted to helping you overcome challenges in your life that prevent you from becoming the best version of yourself. Each episode features interviews with people from all walks of life about their journey of self-development and the principles they utilize to overcome their fears to achieve their desired outcome. Ready to be enlightened? Here's your host, Ken Primus.
As usual, you guys know this is my favorite place. And I get to welcome our guests because they're coming with a couple of things I deem very expensive, their time. 24 hours is given to every man and woman. How we utilize that time will tell us a lot about yourself and you. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful force. It has created the individual that is before us, and this is Malumir. She has gotten some stuff from her journey, and we call those stuff insights, knowledge, and wisdom. And we want to excavate some of that from her so that we can learn and become better human spirits while we are here on this planet. Welcome to Threads of Enlightenment.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken.
It is an honor. One of the questions that I ask, and I like to just blindside you guys with it, is, and I ask this question because, again, I try to have the audience and the listeners to realize that this life is not just about them, it's about other people, reaching to other people as well. And so how do you serve mankind?
I serve people by any time I've gone through anything, whether it's capital T trauma, small trauma, any kind of difficulty. I've always found a way of transmuting that to turn that around to help other people. Because I think that so many of us, we all go through things, and particularly for those who are othered in whatever way that is, we really need to be witnessed. We need to know that other people have been through what we've been through, are seeing what we're seeing, are experiencing the same thing, but are able to be there with us in that space and perhaps offer any learnings as well.
I love that, because I've always, when I'm counseling people and I tell them, I said, your trauma will become your superpower. It is the way by which the avenue by which you're going to serve others, because you have an understanding of that particular issue. And because you do have an understanding of it, you have acquired some wisdom, knowledge, as I said, that will be able to assist those others that are coming through that space, because why? You've been there before. One of the ways by which our customs that we have here at Threads of Enlightenment is to go back in that time machine that is called memory and revisit some of those spaces that we reside for a short period. We have the family, we have the educational system that we deal with, and then we have the corporate system, and then there's the world as we step outside and all those things. The umbrella of all of that is we're looking at what they say is societal expectations and so forth. And then we have religion as well. That is a part of that family unit in some cases. What was your family like?
My family was abusive. My family was not a safe place growing up. It was in combination because, I think to something you said earlier, I don't necessarily think that our trauma makes any of us superpowers. Rather, it's how we heal and what we do in the face of what happens to us. Because the things that happen to us are not us, right? They are things that happen. They are external things that happen to us. So my family, unfortunately, was not a safe place. It was a very unsafe upbringing. And in addition to the abuse itself, you mentioned religion, there was a religion that also was added to that mix. And I see it as separate. It is not the reason that it was an unsafe place, but it was very ideological and added to the difficulty of that situation. But, from a very young age, I was a very spiritual being. I was always very spiritual. From a very young age, I remember I used to be able to see auras physically with my physical eyes. I used to be able to, see and experience. I could just feel that, this world was so much more than just what I could physically touch. And that never left me. Although I would say that given how unsafe my home was, I did clamp a lot of that down for a number of years. And it was only then in early adulthood that I rediscovered my connection to the spiritual, and began my healing journey through various therapy and modalities. And so I'm very grateful to have come back to the spiritual person that I always was.
That is excellent. I also had parts of my life where I could see people's aura, and within the aura of that individual, there's much of their personality. You could tell who they are. And I remember in this particular time when I was walking by this couple, I'll give you my example, and I looked at their aura, and I saw his and I saw hers. But what I saw with him also is that as he's speaking to her, his face and stuff was formed like a snake with the aura around him, and all of his words. And I leaned forward to her and said, "Don't listen to him. He's lying in everything that he's saying." And I gave her that piece of advice, and I continued walking. I didn't try to interrupt, but I told her, I said, don't listen to him. He's lying to you. And hopefully she took that advice. So here you are, you growing up within a mix of an unsafe place. And this young individual has this spiritual alertness, awareness, if you will, and are able to look into the beyond. How did she manage herself there? You mentioned a little that you withdrew. Um, what did that withdrawal from anything else, what did it look like to you?
Yeah. So at the time, I was not consciously aware that I was withdrawing because, of course, I was a young child and it was
Yeah,
simply, my mind, my brain doing what it needed to protect me. But thinking back on it as an adult, what I see happened is that the systems that surround me, because we all live in systems, it doesn't matter,
hmm,
whether they're healthy or unhealthy or neutral. These systems around me were what I learned, right? This is just how
yeah,
human learning works. And so the God of the religion that my family believed in, that particular personification of divine is what
yeah,
I really clung to, and so that's where I directed that spiritual energy, and I'm grateful for that, because that connection to the divine, that connection to what's beyond each of us, is really what saved me so many times,
yeah.
both emotionally and tangibly in the world. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, having that connection is so important. And I know for me, um, one of the very first things that I do when I get up is acknowledge and, uh, just give my graciousness to God for bringing me through another night and that I'm here. And so that's one of the very first persons or individual, if you will, that I began to speak to in the morning before I move and go anywhere. So I know how important that is because it has centered me and saved my life many, many a times. So here you are, this girl, she's moving in and she's has a relationship, if you will, an awareness of the divine God. As she's moving through life, heading towards getting into school and that type of stuff, what was your relationship, your connection to others outside of your family? How did you perceive them? Because again, your family is not safe. How did you perceive the world outside of the family?
I mean, as many children often do, you don't realize that an abusive situation is abuse. You don't actually realize that you're not supposed to get hit all the time and screamed at and so on and so forth, and other kinds. Like you don't realize that this isn't normal. So part of me, but I also questioned it because so many of my classmates in school would talk about doing lots of different kinds of activities. Like they would go to dance practice, or they would do all these other things, or they would go to movies, and they did all these other things that my family didn't do. And so I didn't necessarily assume that everyone's life was like mine, but I wondered, I questioned a lot. And then at one point, we were removed from the school system to be homeschooled. And I have nothing against homeschooling. I think it can actually be very beneficial where you have, healthy guardians who are putting in, the effort to really create a full education. But in my case, it was not. It was not ideal in many ways,
Yeah.
because then I didn't get the relief of being out of the house.
Yeah.
And really, given the problematic nature of said parents, it meant that I ended up just teaching myself from the curriculum.
Wow.
I've always been a quick learner, and I just started working through each of the textbooks myself because it was better than trying. Like, it was impossible to learn. You don't learn while being yelled at and by people who don't actually know how to teach, trying to instruct you things that you can read yourself. So I taught myself using the textbooks and curriculum that were provided, and I really struggled to have sufficient connection outside of the family for many years. It was something that I did push against in the ways that I could. I really pushed for, in terms of religious community, because for many years they wouldn't even take us to services or anything like that,
Wow.
to religious services. And so, and there was always a reason. There was always a reason/excuse. But I really pushed for that as I got into my teen years, and thankfully was able to join a religious community where I did start making friends. And then the very moment that I turned 18, within, I think it was less than 5 weeks, I moved out, because by that point I was
Yeah.
working full time, just, frontline customer service. But it was small town Ontario, and I could afford to pay, to pay rent at a cheap place. And that was a really important time of my life, because that's when I was really able to connect so fully with the outside world, and
Yeah.
through work and building friends and building other community, was really able to access the outside world that way.
As you were able to access the outside world and you said you were working, at that point in time, did you decide to go to college or you just wanted to continue to work? What was your mindset looking at your future in that sense? And why did you make the decision that you did at that time?
Yeah, certainly. So, in terms of what I thought my future would look like, so at that point, I'd spent every Friday. So, when I was working, I'd started working full time at 17. And what I did is that I volunteered for a full day on Fridays at a local elementary school. And I absolutely loved it, because I'd thought from the age of 5 that I was going to be a teacher. I loved the idea of teaching, and I really wanted to be a teacher. So for a couple of years, every single Friday for a full day, I showed up at the local elementary school, and they had me volunteering as a teacher's assistant. They even had me coaching an advanced math class to the grade 8s. And I really, really enjoyed that. But then I soon realized that I started noticing a lot of the way that politics and the way that the education system was set up could actually negatively impact children. And I realized, my goodness, I don't think I can be an elementary school teacher, because I don't want to become one of those teachers who burns out and then inadvertently ends up, badly affecting students for the rest of their lives. So
Yeah.
that really threw me for a loop, because at that point I thought, well, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to somehow, become a teacher. And at that point, it was also a struggle, because my entire high school education had been homeschooling. And obviously, my family was not supportive of finding ways for connection with the outside world. So it's not like anyone had suggested, maybe you should take you can take a general education diploma examination in my jurisdiction, and that essentially serves as a high school diploma. I couldn't even get a job at a local manufacturing plant because I didn't have a high school diploma. I had completed all of the curriculum and, I had the actual education. I just didn't have the piece of paper to prove it. And so what led me to moving out was, I think it was a little bit of divine intervention that one day had me looking through the local newspaper and, flipping through the back, and I saw an ad for, a place for rent. And then it just got me thinking about, I actually don't need to live here anymore. And also I've been on a,
Yeah.
I've been working full time and living full time. And also this is more of a longer drive because I have to drive into town every time that, I have a shift. And so, I allowed the idea to percolate in my mind, and I approached one of my parents about it, who subsequently freaked out, but then later realized that, okay, no, maybe this is an okay thing. The other parent then also freaked out, but at that point I was determined it was going to happen. It was going to happen one way
Yeah.
or another. And so I knew when I moved out and I was working, I knew this was not going to be a long-term plan. But what I also knew is I have no idea what on earth now I should be doing career-wise. And I don't know how or when the answers are going to come, but I'm seeking them. I'm keeping an open mind. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to live some life, and and I know the answers will come because the answers always come if we're looking for them. And so, ultimately they did. And it's been a very winding journey, my career. But I'm very proud of, what I've achieved in my career, and the positive difference that I really hope that I've made in a lot of people's lives where I am now. Spoiler, I did end up getting to teach. It's just I'm teaching now in a university, which is
Yeah.
teaching adults who, they have the agency to make their own choices. And I absolutely love it. And that's one of my jobs, but I absolutely love it.
That is awesome. I love your approach to life, the openness and the expectation, openness to, you know, wanting to learn, and the expectation, as you know, that the answers are there, and seeking of that, pursuing, if you will. There's a verse in the scripture that says, "Seek and you shall find." But you have to be expecting some things too, and so you're having this beautiful, powerful mixture as you're walking through your life, working along with you, synchronizing things in order to bring you those answers that you're expecting to come. That's beautiful. I love it. So here you are. You made the jump. You were determined to do it, and you're heading out to your new um, area, your new lifestyle, newness of it all. As you're there and you got into the newness of it all, how did it register with you?
Yeah, I would say that it it took about um it took about a month for me to realize, my gosh, I can just fall asleep and just sleep at night, because
Yeah.
I wasn't so tense, right? And then feeling the freedom to, if I want to go and spend time, with friends, I can do that. If I want, like, I no longer had to come up with rationale to defend myself on absolutely everything. I didn't have to worry about, uh, any of the things that I'd had to worry about for so long. And that was really wonderful. I will say, when we come of age, there's always lots of learning that happens, right? I
Oh,
was
yeah.
working far too much. I mean, I was working 3 or 4 jobs at a time. Granted, I had to,
Wow.
because even with all 3 or 4 of those jobs, I was still living below the poverty line. But I was living, I was doing life, I was also tutoring because I still loved helping people to learn. I loved helping open doors for people. Like, that's something I'm so passionate about. And so I still did that in addition to my frontline customer service roles. And eventually, answers did start coming. It was just, it was a very rough time in there, in the middle there, where, my mental health was really taking a toll. I was not getting enough sleep. I didn't understand how to have good nutrition. Many of us actually don't as adults. I was never sufficiently hydrated with water. I was always on my feet with my jobs, but I wasn't otherwise, I didn't understand how to have an active lifestyle. And I hadn't even realized yet all the trauma that I'd gone through. It was all just being held in my body and, unprocessed. And so that all culminated to really take a toll. Especially as in those kinds of scenarios, people who have been traumatized and abused tend to not have good boundaries because we've been taught that we don't get boundaries, right? That they don't apply to us, and so, I had, relationships and friendships with people that were just as unhealthy, where I was not being respected and, where it wasn't actually healthy. And so that was quite a painful time, but I continued to seek answers as it related to career. I discovered, I really loved makeup, and I would always, do my makeup every day, and I had a lot of joy in it. And so I started actually taking courses in film and media, thinking, well, maybe I can be a makeup artist. And, I ended up putting myself through college, to be a makeup artist. And I did it for a little while. But the pay was really bad. The hours were horrendous because I wasn't in a union. You have to be in one of the unions in order to have decent pay and good working conditions. But that actually led me then. There was 1 month I had a bunch of freelance jobs all lined up, and they were going to pay my rent for the next month. And then 1 week, it happened in a week. And again, I tell you, this is divine intervention. Week, like one after another, all of those jobs fell through in a week, and they were all completely random things, like, this person couldn't get the funding, or, this other person, it was things like that, where it was all completely out of my control. And I thought, my gosh, what am I going to do? I have to pay rent. So I thought, well, I have a lot of experience as an administrative coordinator, administrative assistant. And so I started job hunting for admin jobs, and I got one at a publisher, downtown in the city. And so I took that job, and I moved downtown, and I met whole other, new people and new communities. And it was during that time that I realized, this still isn't quite the right fit. But I feel like I don't actually have the right skills and qualifications to get me the kind of job that will be the right fit. Yeah. And so I started again, talking to lots of people, doing lots of research. And I discovered urban and regional planning, which I didn't even knew existed as a job, right? And the more I read about it, and I didn't really understand the notion of public service at the time. And I didn't really understand the difference between, government, private sector, non-governmental sector. I didn't really understand all of those things. But it was urban planning that really, it connected with my deep passion for people. And is also what has led me to, I volunteered for the last 20 years in various, nonprofits. It led me to develop a career in public service, because I care so deeply about people and making a positive difference in people's lives.
That is awesome. My nephew did a TED talk on that subject as well, and so it's
fascinating.
Yeah. Yes. So here you are. You've done much. I mean, you've gone through much. Now, you said in earlier you were talking about therapy and so forth. When you began to go to the inside, go into the dark places, if you will, to unearth some of those trauma, those emotional baggage that we carry, because the trauma is stored in that format. And most of us are living in, the initial traumas and so forth will cause you and I to migrate to a survival mode, and survival mode will serve us for a little while. But for those who have been questioning things and continue to question things, survival mode is not, it's not good, because there's an uneasiness that resides within our being, and we now have to go there. So here you are, going there. What was some of those things that you discovered there? And what were the tools that you had to utilize to move you through those discoveries?
Yes. So, I mean, I completely agree, right? When we have unaddressed trauma, yes, we stay in survival mode. And one of the biggest issues with that, of course, is that we end up making decisions
Oh,
from a
yeah.
perspective of survival mode. And that's not making decisions from a perspective of thriving mode, right? So it usually means that we're making, without even realizing it, we're making decisions that are actually negatively affecting us, which sucks. We don't want that. The very first time that I realized that I had the aha moment that, oh my gosh, I grew up in an abusive home, it was actually when I was at college. It was that first college diploma that I put myself through. And what happened was that it was one of my electives, and I took a really fun elective where I thought, I didn't even know these existed as courses. It was a film analysis class taught by a wonderful instructor whom I'm still in touch with, by the way, over 20 years later. And
Wow.
In class that day, she was showing a film called The Magdalene Sisters. And in The Magdalene Sisters, among other things, there was physical abuse that was taking place. And as I was sitting there, and I mean, I'd watched war movies. I'd watched all sorts of movies. It's not like I'd never watched movies before. But this movie, the way, like, there was a particular scene that I started, and I didn't realize what disassociation was at the time, but I was disassociating.
Yeah.
And I was starting to feel panic unlike I'd ever experienced before. And I remember walking out of that classroom like I was almost floating, like I was in a daze, and I was barely breathing. And I don't even remember getting to the other side of the campus. And then I was having a full-blown panic attack. Like I was, leaning over, hyperventilating. And I can't even remember if I texted or called one of my friends, or they just happened to find me. But two of my friends found me, and, they walked me over, and I don't even remember the walk, but they walked me over to the guidance, the counseling, the school counseling services. And the reason that it was so impactful, I mean, first of all, was that then I was then connected with a counselor who wasn't able to see me at that time, but they booked an appointment for later that week. Someone put a bottle of water into my hand. Remember I mentioned how I went dehydrated for years. I was drinking fluids, but I wasn't drinking water. And that's because I'd had a very traumatic experience with my parents and drinking water as a young child. So I physically could not drink regular water. If I tried, I would gag and throw it up.
Wow.
Someone had put a bottle of water into my hand. When I finally was like fully back in my body, I looked down. I had an empty bottle of water. I'm like, why am I holding an empty bottle of water? And my friend, who was still with me because the other had to get to class, she's like, yeah, I know. You were drinking it. You drank the whole thing. And I'm like, interesting. And I thought that was fascinating, because first of all, I recognized I am going to be able to drink water. So there's something going on here. And secondly, when I had that first appointment with the counselor, that was when it was like suddenly it integrated in my mind. And I realized, as I was just factually telling her about what happened in my childhood, I realized, oh my gosh, I've just realized I had an abusive upbringing. Like it was a total moment of actually realizing as an adult, saying the words and describing my upbringing, realizing, oh my gosh, am I hearing the words coming out of my head? That's what that was. And so it was a very freeing moment. It was a freeing moment. Now, of course, I had lots of therapy ahead of me, and I have used various modalities from regular talk therapy. I've done, strengths-based therapy, trauma therapy, and even to this day, for the past few months, I have been investing in regular trauma therapy because, I want to take it to the next level, because what I noticed is that, frequently when we have experienced trauma in childhood, we often, without realizing it, gravitate to the same kinds of situations over and over. And that I knew at 100% as a young person, I did not want that in my future family. And I'm so proud that, I have a beautiful, loving, safe, respectful family of my own. But I accidentally recreated some of those same patterns in my career, and I didn't even realize that I had done it. And so I realized it's time to freshen up and dig deeper. Let's do some more trauma therapy. And there's so many wonderful modalities such as internal family systems and EMDR and deep brain redirection. There's all sorts of really cool therapy
Yeah.
available these days. In addition to my therapy, though, my spirituality also played a huge role. And I'm so grateful for my spirituality because I was able to reassess what beliefs I'd been raised with, what I retained, and also what was actually for me and what I really gravitated toward. And so, I'm grateful for all of those things. And the journey continues, right? And I mean, everyone's life, it's always a journey. We've never perfectly made it, right? None of
Yeah.
us perfectly ever makes it in life. We always have more learning. We can always do more healing. There's always more growth to be had.
I think if we had, if we hit a place where you call perfection, I think we would lose it because I think this particular life is designed to expand us. Because I think if everything was perfect, there's no growth opportunity there. It is the darkness that affords us the ability to stretch a little longer, stretch a little further out, dig a little deeper, get into the uncomfortableness of life and looking deeper into ourselves to say, oh wow, I didn't know this, and so forth. And so we continue expanding. And once we have our North Star, who is our spiritual guide, I think it's going to be okay. It gets hard. No one, guys, personal development and learning is not easy. It is not a lifestyle for the scrimmage and for those that are weak. I keep telling people, lazy people cannot engage in personal development. They'll bail because, especially when they get into those places and they start noticing things about themselves, a lot of people have not been able to face that, but that is a necessary part of it. And so, as you begin to unearth these um, uh, layers, if you will, and you started noticing, you bring in the tools to assist you and to move you through. You said, and that's it. Some of it is so deep in us that we continue that pattern, not aware of things, and then we have to dig deeper, as you state, to find the root cause analysis, if you will. We have to do some root cause analysis and then begin to move forward. How did you begin to feel when all of these things began to bear fruit, if you will? What was your approach to life at that point in time? How did you make the adjustment as you're unearthing all of these, bringing these tools to assist? What was happening to you, Malumir?
Yeah, so I think the first thing and the first it's because when you first start doing trauma therapy, and it doesn't matter how many times you've done it before, because as you work your way up Maslow's hierarchy of needs from, you got to make sure your basic necessities are taken care of, because if they're not, you could work so hard and your brain is going to continue to protect you, which is often what we perceive as laziness is actually just our brains trying to protect us. And so once you start doing that trauma therapy, you notice that you start making better decisions. And
Mm-hmm.
it surprises you. It comes out of nowhere where you're like, I just reacted completely differently to someone
Yeah.
that I normally would not have responded that way. And wow. And it'll surprise you. It surprises you. And so that's what was happening at the time. I also started feeling more confident, and I started connecting more to my identity and realizing my identity, right? Because I am someone who has neurodivergence, and I mean I'd had known neurodivergence from a very young age, but I didn't actually get diagnosed until adulthood because, again, of set upbringing. And I'm an ambiguously racialized person, and it shouldn't matter, but in this world, it does matter because
Yes.
people, of the systems that exist. And I I actually started connecting to that and started getting more comfortable with who I
Hmm.
am, because I'd never really had that opportunity to think about, well, who I am. It was always what I did and, how people reacted to me. It wasn't who I am. And so that was the very first thing that I think I noticed when I first started getting counseling right at the beginning. Though as time went on, so, let's fast forward several years from there. And I'd found, my wonderful spouse, and I had started a yoga practice, and yoga was the thing that I was doing at the time because it just felt like that's what my body needed. And so I
Hmm.
was really connecting in my yoga practice, and suddenly the yoga mat felt like such a safe place. It felt like such a safe place for me. And I'll never forget the evening that, I was just doing my yoga practice, and I suddenly started feeling, and when I was doing hip openers, I was having huge anxiety and fear come up out of nowhere, and such that it
Wow.
felt like I was going to explode. Like I couldn't even control it. I'm like, oh my goodness, where's all this coming
Wow.
from? And at that point, I still didn't realize I was traumatized. I had had counseling, but I
Yeah.
hadn't connected the dots in my mind that
And it
that was
clicked.
trauma. Well, and then so I reached out to I found, a local person who did one of the things they did was trauma therapy. What I was looking for was someone
Yeah.
who understood the difference, like the connection between what I didn't know at the time was somatic
Yeah.
experiences and therapy. And so this person was explaining like this. So what you're describing is post-traumatic stress disorder, and this is trauma, and what it means is that you're now feeling safe enough that these emotions are now coming out. They're coming up and
Coming
coming out
out.
to be processed because you're ready. So
Yeah.
I did, and it ended up being complex PTSD, because the difference, of course, being that it's not that you had a safe kind of experience and then something bad happened. It's you've never known what safety is your entire
Yeah.
life. So I I pursued, that kind of trauma counseling for some time, and then again, I started noticing I was making healthier decisions, um, and caring less in an appropriate way of um, how unhealthy behaviors were being directed at me. So I was doing a better job of again, having a little bit more boundaries. And then fast forward to just this past month, I there's someone I've known for many years, a friend and colleague, and I guess they were having a weird day, and I happened to be having a phone call with them, and they reacted in a very strange way. There was a lot of essentially it was essentially almost like a personal attack, and it wasn't. I don't think they intended it that way, but they were
Hmm.
just they it was their own internalized systemic stuff that was coming out and being directed at me. And
Yeah.
I found myself, given that, the trauma, because otherwise my interaction with this person in the past has always been, well, I admire them, I respect them. And so I would always just kind of back down if they had a really strong opinion. But in this case, I found no, actually. And I very, quietly and peacefully held my ground on what I felt was accurate. And I remained poised and calm. I didn't disassociate. I didn't fawn, right? Which is a common trauma response. I didn't do those things. I very, calmly and peacefully held my ground and didn't engage in the same way. And I almost didn't know what to do, because again, when we as we heal and we react differently and we make different decisions, sometimes people don't always know how to react to that because they're used to us
Yep.
being how we've been in the past. And
Yeah.
even though it wasn't a fun conversation, it it felt it actually, I was so proud of myself because it showed what more healing I've done in recent months by, just by the evidence of, wow, I didn't do my typical backing down, withdrawing kind of response. I actually stayed present and was able to engage in a way that respected and honored my truth.
It's a powerful, powerful story. Some of the most important aspects of one's personal growth that you have to engage in as we learn how to do uh, set boundaries, I tell people that boundaries is designed to honor you, is designed to um, give you respect. It's all of these things, and but most of us have a negative connotation that when we standing up for ourselves, especially those that have been people pleasers, if you will. And so we think we're hurting them, not realizing, no, 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 no. We're thinking differently. We have to put those boundaries for us to protect us, as I said, honor us. And as we express our truth, then, as you said, they look at you and go, whoa, wait a minute, because this is a person that has been through some stuff, has learned a couple of things, and is now expressing um, herself or himself through the boundaries that they have put in place to shield them and protect them. So here you are learning so much and living and experiencing all of these things. As you are progressing in your life, and you've been serving for, most of your life as an individual, you said that the aura piece of you began to become reactivated. What aspect of your life did it start to reactivate, and how are you moving through that today?
Yes. So, in terms of the first question, in terms of how, the spirituality reintegrating with me, or me reintegrating with that part of myself, I will say, I mean, I don't go around, I still don't see, physical auras on trees. I always kind of look to see, oh, can I see them? But what I mean, I have, a spiritual practice, and I have such strong connection to my intuition these days. My tuition is always bang on these days. It's just bang on, and
Yeah.
because unfortunately, that's one of the impacts that trauma has on us, is that we stop trusting ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
it can take a long time to learn how and when to trust ourselves and regain that trust, because it's a relationship, right? It's a relationship with
Yeah.
ourselves that,
Yep.
that
That's it.
if we have to rebuild it. And so, I have really re-engaged with my trust of my intuition. I have my spiritual practices, my meditation, and ways that I honor my ancestors. And in terms of the second question, it's been so impactful. And again, it has been a real lifesaver and mind saver for me recently, because for the past year, I've been dealing with some very serious medical issues, and it's pretty debilitating, right? I mentioned to you right before we joined the show that it's good that I'm able to sit up for now. I'm going to have to go lie down after this, but I'm
Yeah.
able to sit up this morning because 3 or 4 days a week I'm physically not able to sit up. I'm dealing with
Yeah.
very serious medical stuff, and it's I'm someone who's normally running marathons and kayaking and hiking up mountains and walking and doing all these things. I'm usually very athletic, and I'm someone who's very, ambitious, and I'm someone who's socially active. And now I have to spend most of my time lying down while they try to figure out, this very severe dizziness and, these other issues. So while I'm going through this, I am still finding ways to engage with the world, to still try to make a positive difference. It's one reason I'm here, for
Mm-hmm.
example, because I really want to, even though
Yeah.
I am debilitated, what abilities do I have, right? My spirituality also allows me, because spirituality, I feel, it's not just about connection to the, to the woo or the beyond. It's also about connection to that which is beyond myself. Because
Mm-hmm.
when we do that, we are treating other people better. We are serving other people because we are actually thinking about them and thinking about their lives and their feelings and what they're going through. And so, I've still, I still try to fight the good fight in terms of, things I really believe in my career, like anti-oppressive leadership, in terms of, anti-racism, anti-sexism, anti-ableism, and so forth. So I still try to make a difference in that through, writing I do on leadership. And it can be very slow going because I often can't look at a screen. I can't read. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
dictate into a phone when I can. And then also in terms of my own mental and emotional well-being, it has allowed me to, my spirituality has allowed me to stay grounded in who I am, because I haven't stopped being any of those things that I have been. I haven't stopped being an athlete. Just because I'm not able to physically run at this time doesn't mean I've stopped having that mindset. Being an athlete is not just about what you do, it's so much about your mindset and how you
It's
think.
more mindset than anything else.
It is a huge proportion of mindset, right? And I haven't stopped being ambitious, and I haven't stopped being socially active. And so I have found ways to still do and be those things. And I really credit my, my connection with my intuition, and my all of my practices to helping me stay connected with who I am, and to helping me continue to think creatively, right? And to adapt. I think so often, especially for those who are othered in some way, we need to know how to adapt and transmute the things that we go through to turn them into awesome things. So that is where I am today, and that's what I'm working to do.
Hey guys, we're going to provide everything for you guys. You need to get into her space. I need you guys to get there and come expecting answers. As she had said earlier, she knew the answers were there. And she kept moving through, expecting the answers. And sure enough, the answers will, approach her and have an opportunity for her to see the insights. And all of you guys, we're all in pain to some degree. But we have a wonderful, beautiful story in this precious Malumir who is able to tell you guys how to get that mindset that is necessary to walk through your pain. It is here, guys. Being an athlete, she gave you a whole litany of things that she did as an athlete. And because she's done that, her mind is a little quicker in making adjustments, because an athlete will always push themselves beyond. And when you go beyond the pain, beyond all the limitations, and that's what the mindset does. It helps you to push beyond the limitations. And when you get to that space where you thought was a limitation, you realize, wait a minute, there's so much more to go, and to keep going. So we're going to give you guys access to her. So here you are. You mentioned some of the new things that you're dealing with, that you are in this dance with, to find out the answers there. As you are here right now, what is it that you sense in your being that you feel that is some kind of importance that you want to offer those that are listening to us? What is it that you sense as we are having and engaging on this conversation? Because I know your senses, if you will, is at a peak.
So the word that keeps popping into my mind when you ask that question is the word uncertainty. Uncertainty. And something that I've been thinking a lot about in my current situation is that I am facing a completely uncertain future. I literally don't know what's going to happen. They still don't know what the problem is with me. And I don't know if I'm ever going to run again. Am I ever going to climb another mountain? Am I ever even going to be able to walk my dog again? Am I going to be able to keep building my career? Which means so much to me. And will I be able to do any of those things again? Will I be able to just go and meet up for a friend for coffee whenever I want because I'm able to sit up and walk and do those things? I don't know. I still have no idea. And that's a great deal of uncertainty. But here's the thing that I realized is that actually every single one of us is facing an uncertain future. It's just that many of us have the illusion of certainty. Mm-hmm. We have the illusion that we know what's going to happen tomorrow and that what's going to happen next month and next year. This is not to say that we shouldn't have goals. Absolutely. Let's have goals. Let's have desires. Let's pursue our joy. Let's pursue the things that matter to us. But in the face of that uncertainty, it's why it's so important to go within. It's why it's so important to heal, because that's the only place that where you can have some certainty is within your healing journey, right? As you heal and as you find yourself making decisions that are aligned with your highest well-being and highest joy and highest healthy connection and service to other people, you find that things unfold in beautiful and empowering ways for you and others. It really does all come together. But again, it comes back to, in that uncertainty, it's okay for things to be uncertain. It's okay if you have no idea what on earth is coming next. What you can do is continue to pursue your healing, because as you continue to pursue your healing, you're going to make such an amazing impact, not only on your own life, but on the lives of those around us. And we all get there together.
Malumir, I'm going to leave it there. I mean, I don't know, there's nothing else I could say. And again, guys, we're going to provide everything for you to meet and have a conversation. Are you in pain? I have someone that has been there and is currently there, but knows how to guide you through. And having a guide is so important. She mentions hers and the different modality that they utilize to move her through. She is a reservoir of lots of data, information that can move you through. Get in touch with her and become free. Because I always tell you guys, there's a scripture in the Bible that says the truth is going to set you free. Find your truth and get your freedom, man. Thank you so much for coming to Threads of Enlightenment.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Ken. This was lovely.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.